Recognize the ranking member, Mr. Green, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, in court, we have an objection known as assuming facts that are not in evidence. Assuming facts that are not in evidence. Today, we have had a lot of anecdotal commentary given to witnesses, which would cause one to assume facts that have not been placed in evidence. We have not had empirical evidence of the allegations that have been made, the anecdotal evidence, if you will. So let's, for just a moment, examine some facts. Let's go to the North Carolina case, and let's talk for a moment about the number of complaints that were received against this bank. And I'll start with our representative from the Justice Department.
Well, as reflected in our complaint that was filed in the case when and then that led to the consent decree that the court approved, the bank had received hundreds of complaints from banks of customers who had been victimized that included sworn statements.
Let me intercede for just a moment. You said from banks of customers. So you have banks complaining about the activity of another bank.
Yes, exactly, Congressman.
And let's go on. From this material, these number of complaints, did the bank take some affirmative action without the Justice Department's intervention?
Well, again, as alleged in the complaint, the bank was aware of these complaints, as well as complaint from NACHA, the Payment Electronic Transactions Association, and the Attorney General of Arkansas, and yet continued to facilitate the transactions of the payment processor that was handling the transactions that were.
Let's put a face on this. These transactions were actually consumer purchases. Is that a fair statement? Or there were consumers associated with each of these transactions. Is that a fair statement? Because these were payday loans.
Many of them were related to payday lending, not all, but many, and they were transactions involving consumers. So the main complaint, again, as reflected in our allegations, was that the consumers had been misled into the terms and the number of debits that they understood would be coming out of their accounts.
And is it true, sir, that the bank received about $850,000 in fees associated with these transactions?
Yes, again, that's the number that we have in our complaint.
And is it true that there was a settlement for about $1.2 million, meaning that the bank agreed to pay some $1.2 million to settle this case?
Yes, and also agreed, as reflected in the consent order, to a series of compliance measures that we insisted on to ensure that fraud couldn't continue with respect to.
Was this a product of Operation Choke Point?
Yes, this was one of the cases, the investigations that arose out of that series of work.
If not but for Operation Choke Point, would we have the $1.2 million settlement? Would this bank have been put in a position such that it had to make a change such that this kind of behavior, this activity, is no longer continuing?
Again, Congressman, I think that result is the direct result of our work in these investigations. And this case is the best example of the kind of work that we're doing. It's about real fraud, not just doing business with a lawful industry.
Thank you. Let me quickly go to the, I'm going to call it the list of merchants. It's styled high-risk merchants activities. Now, it has been indicated to us that this list was compiled with the assistance of industry. Is this correct?
It's actually taken from industry experience, industry examples, and in fact, it's very
But this is about more than industry. This is about the people who were doing business with these industries. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Is it about consumers who were being defrauded as a result of doing business with these industries? Is that correct?
Well, again, as we've said in our guidance, the fact that certain industries are high risk doesn't mean they're
that they are, that all of the businesses within an industry, but the complaints that are generated are usually based upon some consumer saying, you took too much money from my credit card, or you added too much to my credit card. You used my bank routing number, and you collected money from my bank without my consent and permission. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
So we are trying to, with this, the intent of this was to protect consumers. Is that a fair statement?
It is, but again, I just would caution, that list does not
It's not
say you
yours.
can't- well, it is a list that came from a Supervisor Insights journal that FDIC published a long time ago, but the point of it was not to say you can't do business with these entities. A lot of those entities are legitimate.
I agree
Yes.
with you, but
I
it's
just wanna
the
make sure
purpose
that's
of it was
clear.
to protect consumers ultimately.
Yes.
That was my question. All right, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to, for Mr. Heck, add the article that is styled Pots of Marijuana Cash called Security Concerns with unanimous consent, please.
Without objection.
And with this, I will yield back the balance of time that I do not have.
Thank the ranking member. With that, I'd